Hey, everybody. I'm JT, and welcome to Grilling at the Green here on a multitude of radio stations and our biggest platform out there, the Golf News Net Radio Network. Thank you for being with us today. How how's your golf game? Well, if it's like mine, probably not so sharp right now, but we'll work on that later. I want to welcome my good friend and co-business conspirator Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Net today. Ryan's been kind of doing some subtle announcements out there. I thought I would help him along with this because I'm a very self-serving person, as you know. Talking about Golf News Net television and some other things in the golf world. Ryan, welcome.
Hey Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Well, I think I'm good. I guess I don't know. Don't ask my wife though. Um, so let's jump in here right at the start. You've been conspiring in the back rooms of the television world for a while now, and you just launched GNN TV. Tell the listeners about that if they don't already know.
Yeah, GNN TV is a 24/7 streaming linear channel dedicated to the game of golf. So it's available currently on a couple of different streaming services, free live sports and free cast. We'll add a couple more through the end of the year here, and then probably another half dozen in the first quarter of 2025. And then as we speak, we're releasing the GNN apps for Roku and Amazon Fire. So you'll be able to watch that 24/7 channel live through those apps, as well as all of our programming on demand. And then hopefully just a couple weeks after that, we're going to do an update to our app for Apple TV, where you'll be able to do the same thing, watch that 24/7 stream, but also be able to watch all of our programming on demand. The Grilling of the Green, the video series, is part of the channel, which we're very, very excited about. Then we have a bunch of original programming, and then tournaments coming, competitions coming between the Putt Tour, between Golf Zone Tour, elite amateur series events, collegiate events, some events from professional tours abroad. We'll have a great mix for everybody, whether you love to play the game or whether you are a professional golf fan or both.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm very very proud to be part of that. Um, if you don't know, folks, Grilling at the Green television is part food and part golf. And Ryan's been kind enough to go along with my somewhat off the wall ideas at times. But I think there's a place for that in our golf world. And I also think everything Ryan just spoke of, there's a big place for that because not knocking Golf Channel, but there's a lot more that happens in the world of golf other than just large tour events and some collegiate stuff like that. I think Ryan's opened the door here for a lot of programming. How tough was it when you came up with this idea and you went, I think I'll do this? And you've had plenty of experience doing things like this. But walk us through the journey because did you get up one day and look at your wife and say, I think I'm going to start a television network?
Not quite, but I had this idea in mind for a while. We've had apps for Roku and Amazon Fire and Apple TV for a couple of years now, and it just never made enough original content to really warrant anything more than that, really.
Yeah.
And I still had this idea in my brain of starting, it's called a free ad supported TV channel. That's what our channel is. Free and there's ads, but it's a streaming TV channel. And I went to someone, I kind of put out a little APB on LinkedIn of just seeking help. I mean, I know enough to know that I don't know much. So I went to go talk to a few folks, and I had a call that I'll admit was a total wet blanket. And it was a wet blanket because I realized that I couldn't make enough content by myself to make this happen. And it it was such a wet blanket that it made me upset, made me angry. And the quickest way to get me to do anything is to tell me I can't do it. And
Right.
then I said, okay, well, if I can't do it by myself, I need partners and I need help. And started seeking out people who knew the streaming side of things, the streaming world. That's how I found my business partner, Scott Ryan at TVIQ, and then started reaching out to people that I've had relationships with in golf, thanks to golf, for 5, 10, 20 years. And a good number of those folks have produced content for television, whether they're doing it currently or they would like to, or they had recently, and started making the pitch. Hey, we can give some of your older programming additional life. We can take some of your current programming and give it more distribution. We can take some of the ideas that maybe wouldn't fit on a regional sports network or elsewhere and put it to an audience of people who are golf diehards. And that turned into a lot of yeses. I think a lot of people saw what I saw, that there was a vacuum there. Nothing against Golf Channel. They're incredible, but
Oh yeah,
their programming mix is almost entirely competitive professional golf, because that's what they pay for, and so that's what they're going to have.
sure.
And so there's a, I saw, and I think the people who have been positive about the concept, there haven't been too many negatives, have said, there are way more recreational golfers. People are interested in golf even at a casual level than there are people who watch professional golf week to week, by a factor of like 10, 12. And so if we can talk to those people, and we can talk to those people where they are, then we can do something really cool and different. And that's kind of been the last 16, 17 months of going from that initial conversation to proving that there is an audience for these types of things, and then going and finding the allies that you need to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, when I got my idea for my first TV production, this was back in the 90s. And I talked to a guy that produced for was it HGTV. Yeah. And so I got him on the phone and I was talking to him and he stopped me and he said, there is no room in television today for a program like yours. Now, mine was a food show because that's what I do mainly, right? And I like you, I was really deflated. And then, 5, 6 years later, there was a million food shows on TV. And I always kind of wonder what happened to that guy. So uh, they can it's such a personal thing when you're seeking out advice and potential enthusiasm for an idea you have, and somebody throws as you put it, a wet blanket on you. It can tick you off, and it does make you dig in your heels. And sure enough, it was only a couple of years later that I put my first show out there. So I empathize with you, my friend.
I think that there has to be a certain audacity to do these types of things. You have to also be somewhat delusional in thinking that your idea is so much better or original or creative than anybody else's, that it absolutely has to be seen by the world or heard by the world, or whatever the medium. So there's a key element of kind of being off base, perhaps, or at least being able to see something that doesn't exist.
Right.
That's not a ghost. And I fortunately, if you can convince enough people that your idea is relevant and valid, then it starts to kind of steamroll and gain momentum. And what I have found in all kinds of conversations that I've had in the last year and a half is that the more people you can show are on board with your idea, the more easy it is to convince the next person and the next person and the next person. And then all of a sudden it has a force to it that is even greater than you ever could have imagined, and it kind of starts to take over for itself. And we're not there quite yet, but it's getting there, and that's the most exciting part, is to not be the only one who thinks your idea is actually a pretty decent one.
I'll say amen to that. In a multitude of ways, I'll say amen to that. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with Ryan Ballengee, the proprietor of Golf News Net Radio and Golf News Net TV, along with the Golf News Net website, et cetera, et cetera. The list is long, and we'll be talking about a lot of those things when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Today we've got Ryan Ballengee with us. Ryan, of course, is the guy who came up with the idea of GNN TV. That's Golf News Network TV. I've been working with Ryan now for, I don't know, 4 years or something, 5 years. And he's been on the show right when I started the show. He came on a few times. And so this show, Grilling at the Green, is part of the lineup now on the new GNN TV. You were talking about people's ideas and stuff. Is the tough part, Ryan, explaining to people, especially, I'm going to put it this way, people that have a little more age and wisdom on them, that it's a streaming, not a terrestrial type situation, because they expect you, when I tell people, I said, well, it's going to be on Roku or Hulu or free or whatever, and they're like, well, what channel? And then you just say Golf Newsnet TV. Uh, to me, there's a bit of a separation there that sometimes people that if they're not used to doing streaming stuff can't get their head wrapped around it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a learning curve for some people that is to be expected. I think there's something like 100 million people in the United States who use a fast channel once a month or something similar, whether that's Netflix or Pluto TV or a Roku stick, I mean, you name it. So the good news is probably about a third of the country uses these things every month. The bad news is two-thirds don't.
Right.
So having to explain that to people and the people that have never used it, that's part of the challenge here. And part of it is trying to get on as many of these streaming services as we can so that people can find us. So if they are using them, they'll know we exist. And then
Right.
our job, if we're doing it right, is we can use our owned and operated platforms, those apps for Apple TV and Roku and Amazon Fire and eventually Samsung and Android and others. And we could say, you can find us in the most convenient place that we can get you to. Whether you
Right.
have a Roku TV, and so many TVs have Roku as their operating system than ever, we can make it real easy. Do these three things, and you can watch our channel. And
Yep.
once we kind of get past that education component, then that's going to be extremely helpful. But also, the out of home distribution stuff that we're going to do is going to be great, not only for a business model perspective, but also marketing. People can go into a pro shop or a clubhouse, see Golf Newsnet TV, and go, "What the hell is that?" And then they'll do a Google search, or they'll ask the bartender or their pro, "What is that?" "Oh, well, that's this, and here's how you can find it." And that's how that starts. So it's as much marketing and education as it is going to find the programming and doing the technical side. There is a lot that goes into it, but there's also a lot of energy behind it, so it's kind of easy to do that work.
Yeah, I found that well, here at our house, we cut the cable cord, if you will, several years ago, and we stream everything, and we have for quite a while. And I know some of our friends, uh, like if they're for whatever reason they're here and we're after dinner or something, they're watching TV together, and they're like, well, how do you get all those? Do you subscribe to all of them or what? And so had to explain it to them, and a lot of them have actually switched to streaming only because I think it really broadens what's available to people. But that's just my view on TV. Um, how when you're all said and done, what's your kind of overview of the type of content? I mean, you talked about the different options now and some of the stuff coming in, but if we have this conversation a year from now, Ryan, what would the lineup look like in your best case scenario?
Well, it's kind of three buckets of programming. The one bucket being stuff that's already on TV or has been on TV or was made for TV. And there are a lot of really high quality shows that are made that appear on regional sports networks around the country. And those are cable networks that are starting to kind of go by the wayside because they have been impacted by fewer people having cable. And sports leagues moving their teams off of cable packages and into streaming or over the air network TV. And a lot of these folks have been making good shows, good evergreen golf content, often regionally focused for 5, 10, 20 years.
Right.
And now they see the reality of the future, but also the opportunity to kind of balance out whatever's happening with the sunset of cable with an opportunity to reach additional audiences with a big back library of programming. So
Mm-hmm.
those were easy conversations. And we're still having those with a bunch of different shows. And then we'll have live talk programming that'll simulcast on GNN radio during the weekdays, which will allow us to offer more programming, both not only for the TV side, but also on the radio side. That transforms 2-year-old Golf Newsnet radio into give it something a little bit of a fresh coat of paint, which is great. And then we hope to have some form of competitive golf on our channel in prime time 150 to 200 days of the year. And if we can do that, we're going to deliver for people a variety of golf competitions that aren't just 72 holes, stroke play, or medal play, that should be compelling, should be interesting for people who love the game at a competitive level. And then that will all allow us to meet people where they are and how they love golf. And if we're doing that right, then a year from now, our conversation will be about what platforms we still have left, or as this space evolves really quickly, that we're well positioned for whatever that next stage is. And there will be a next stage, because eventually cable companies that are trying to preserve subscription rates or find a new path forward, they're going to turn to channels like ours, ones that were built for the streaming environment, but also have a ton of original programming to help offset or offer additional value to their cable customers that maybe don't want to pay $200 a month anymore for uh, 600 channels, 497 of which they've never watched.
Yeah, absolutely. And out of those 497, 237 of them are, uh, home shopping networks or whatever. I always love that about the cable companies. Yeah, you've got 375 channels with this, and I watched 5 of them, type thing. So anyway, we're going to take another break. We're going to be back with Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Network, talking about the new GNN TV. And then we've got a couple of topics coming up that you might find interesting. Stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Today we got Ryan Ballengee with us. By the way, I want to thank Painted Hills Natural Beef, beef the way nature intended. Our new sponsor, it's not that new right now, but this year, Squares Golf Shoes. And also the Oregon Dungeness Crab Commission. They've been great in supporting us in the TV version of this show and the other stuff I do on TV. So it's worked out really well. Anyway, we're talking with Ryan Ballengee, as I said, from Golf News Network. And I want to talk to you about a couple of things have happened in golf the last couple of days. One, the Tours Policy Board voted to adapt some changes. Their big issue was, of course, slow play. And they've cut the numbers on the tour, that the starting numbers, I think it's down to from 156 down to like 130, 120, like that, as far as a field in a tournament like that. I think there's a multitude of reasons for that, and I'd like to get your take on it, Ryan. But I also think they're doing it to kind of stop the hemorrhaging of money and trying to keep up a little more with the live people. But I want your take.
I think it originates from two places. One, yeah, we want to stop our star players from entertaining the idea of taking Saudi money and going to live. And I honestly kind of think that that train has stopped. John Rahm was the last guy on that train that's out of the station. I could be surprised, but I think that's going to be the case unless for whatever reason, Saudis and the PGA Tour decide they're going to unmarry and they're going to not consummate their framework agreement into a permanent agreement, which could
Sure.
happen.
Yeah.
But I also think there is a practical component to this. There are 156 players in a lot of PGA Tour events, particularly through the summer. And frankly, if you were to ask people who attended those tournaments how many of those 156 players they came to see, they'd tell you less than 20. And that means that those extra players who have the opportunity to upset the apple cart, make a top 10 finish, get into another event, earn status, that kind of gnaws away at the value of a tour card, particularly as a player who's on the fringes of keeping one every year. And I think what they decided was, hey, we have way too many people who have great PGA Tour status relative to the number of spots that we have, because you've got 125 fully exempt players. You've got players who have finished in the 126 to 150 category who get like 15 or 17 starts. Then you've got to accommodate the 30 players that graduate from the Corn Ferry Tour, and the 5 and ties that graduate from Q School, and the 10 that graduate from the DP World Tour. And all of a sudden, we've got way more than 156 guys that are trying to make a living playing golf.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of them just don't have the access that they probably thought they were going to get. And I think the thought here is, if we cut those numbers down, then we can guarantee, hey, if you've got a PGA Tour exempt card, you're going to get into all of the regular events. Maybe if things work out, you can play your way into the signature events. If you graduated from the DP World Tour, the Corn Ferry Tour, Q School, guess what? You're going to get into almost all of the regular events. You're going to get a fair shake at keeping your card. And if you are a player who, frankly, just is kind of hanging on and gets into events because you at one time were on the PGA Tour or on the outer fringes of being marginally good on the PGA Tour, we're going to make it harder for you. We're going to force you to the Corn Ferry Tour. We're going to force you to other places to play golf. And we want the PGA Tour to be reserved for the best of the best. And so we're going to have 100 fully exempt players. We're going to have smaller fields because, one, our players are slow, and two, they want to play against fewer people. And that's going to be the path forward. Will it work for them? Probably. I think the overwhelming percentage of golf fans don't know and don't care how many players are in every field every week. They just want to care about how many top players there are. And if this can help that along and make sure they finish rounds closer to on time, then it's probably a big win for them.
Excuse me. I also think, this is my 2 cents, but from a television perspective, I think it's going to give more camera time, if you will, to players you actually might want to watch if you're at home. When you look at the 2 preliminary rounds of a tournament, and they're kind of all over the place. They've got, 5 or 10 players that they focus on most of the time. They have a lot of name recognition or what have you. But there's also the up and comers that are really good. And, they got on there and all of a sudden they've got a couple of top 20s and it's their first year and they're doing well and they're starting to gain recognition. But with that many people in the field, especially at the front end of the tournament, you don't get a lot of, like I said, TV time. And I think it will help on that too, to actually kind of broaden the fan base of any given player if they're playing well.
I think that's possible too. I mean, we've spent this year doing a series with French Lick Resort around the Corn Ferry Tour because they host the Corn Ferry Tour Championship.
Right.
So we've spent a lot of time thinking about talking to people related to the Corn Ferry Tour. And I was very excited for Rafa Campos to win in Bermuda because he had just come off the Corn Ferry Tour. And he had come off being the 30th player. He was the last guy to get a card. And even though he had a PGA Tour card, technically he didn't have one practically because it was really hard for him to get into events throughout the year until he got into the middle part of the year, May, and then through the summer when a lot of the top players kind of just play a little bit more sporadically. And He had struggled to make cuts. I mean, he basically had missed, 14 to 15 cuts, wasn't playing well, and he had a chance in the fall to kind of save himself. And for one great week, he did that. He saves himself. That's an awesome, cool story that only happens because of the Corn Ferry Tour. And my hope is that because of this, somehow the PGA Tour will do a better job of promoting that the Corn Ferry Tour exists and is their lead pathway to the PGA Tour, and that they can do the same for the DP World Tour and highlight the breadth and depth of professional golf that's never been this good. But you need to be able to have spaces for those players to play, to be able to tell those stories. So this is hopefully a first step in that regard. And then they fix the television product, the marketing product, the whole channel of how we storytell about golf, because no one can do it as well as they can. They've got the biggest megaphone, they've got the biggest platform to do it. They've got to put the resources to work to make that happen.
How's it how's it going to affect sponsor exemptions? Because there always seems to be a sponsor exemption in, any tour event, especially the larger ones, the highlighted ones. That you always hear kind of behind the scenes a few grumbles here and there. Why did they let this guy in and this other player is better, et cetera, et cetera. Part of that's just human nature and that, but I would think that this would perhaps make sponsor exemptions more, what do I want to say, more thought given to them before they just hand one out to somebody?
So they're going to scale back about half of the sponsor exemptions to every open tournament,
Right.
because they have a number of, this is really inside baseball, but they have a number of different categories by which they give sponsor exemptions. Some are unrestricted and can be to literally anybody, and some are restricted and limited to players of a certain status. So players who graduate from the DP World Tour, Corn Ferry Tour, Q School, they got their own category of sponsor exemption. Well, that's going away. So now those are extra spots in the field, oftentimes 3 players, that will now just go to the next available player in the priority list. So instead of having to play a political game and writing letters to tournament directors and hoping they liked your letter the best, or that your primary sponsor was a presenting sponsor or some kind of sponsor of that week's event, now it can just kind of go to the player who earned it based on their play. And I think that is a very good thing. On the flip side, having reduced numbers of Monday qualifiers at a lot of events, about half of them, and 3 of them just going away entirely, that's a downside to me. But they're trying to set up a tour where it's less coming down to skill, luck, or politicking to get into events, and more about your long-term performance.
Yeah, and I think that's really relevant because it all ties into what we were talking about. Giving the better guys, if you will, a better chance to compete at those events. Anyway, we're going to take a break, come back, and wrap up the show with Ryan Ballengee. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Today we were with Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Network. Get back to the other stuff real quick, Ryan. People should go to the GNN website to find out more about, the radio versions and now the television versions. What should they look for there?
So head over to golfnewsnet.com, and we've got big parts in our navigation for either GNN Radio or GNN TV. If you click on GNN TV, you can watch GNN TV live right there, get information on how to download our apps or which platforms you want to watch us on. Pick your one of choice. We're happy you're watching us any way you watch us. And then you can watch episodes of our original programming on demand right now. We're expanding that on practically a daily basis on the website. But the first 3 episodes of Grilling at the Green TV are available there to watch on demand. And then on the radio side, if you go over there, you can listen on iHeartRadio if you're in the United States and in Canada and in parts of Australia, or you'll be presented tuned in if you're from other parts of the world, but you can listen either way. You'll also get a full list of our schedule, as well as all the shows that we have on the channel. You can listen to them on demand if you'd like, and find ways to subscribe to them as podcasts if you're so inclined to listen to podcasts.
Oh, there you go. How about that? Um, how much time have you had to play golf? I know you're on your way to play golf right now, but what you're doing and having some experience with it, I would say the clubs sat in the corner more than they sat on the course this year.
Yeah, I probably played the least amount of golf this year since I became a parent almost 12 years ago. Um, it's just the reality of the situation, and then that's okay. I knew that going into it that this was going to be a year of a lot of time spent on Zoom calls and phone calls and being behind a desk and uploading and downloading and coding and all kinds of things like that. I knew that was going to be the case, but I think that makes me appreciate getting to play the game actually more, because now the instances I get to do it, it's kind of like a special treat. It's not just something I get to do in the afternoons when I can blow off work.
Yeah. How much? Wanted to ask you this earlier in the show. Did you get any pushback on this? I told you a story about HGTV. You talked about the wet blanket effect, but did you get any pushback from anybody at the higher levels of golf about starting GNN TV?
No, I mean it's actually been really interesting. Pretty much every governing body that I've talked to, and there are a couple I haven't, or quasi governing bodies, like I haven't talked to Augusta National about it, but pretty much everyone else sees the value of it. That they recognize that from the prism we want to show golf, which is around recreational golf and what recreational golfers are interested in, there really isn't an outlet for that right now. So they have been as helpful as they can be. I mean, there's healthy skepticism about anything like this. Like, are you actually going to do this? When are you going to do it? How are you going to get it out there? And that's all totally to be expected. And then as you answer each question along the way with what we're doing and how we're distributing it, makes those conversations easier, and it makes them that much more eager to get involved. So um, we really haven't had any issues with anyone that's kind of controlling recreational, competitive, professional golf. They want to be involved as much as they can, and in some cases, like the PGA Tour, that's not a ton because they get massive rights fees that they have to work with and satisfy. But
Right.
by and large, it's very encouraging.
Well, and we might next year, folks, from some of the golf shows. I don't mean shows on television or radio, but actually events, do some streaming from a couple of those shows. And there's always interesting people to talk to at local or regional, golf merch shows out there. Ryan can tell you that more than I can. I've only been doing it for, years, but I think Ryan grew up in this stuff. So that might be a possibility too. We've talked about.
Golf's a game of stories. I mean, more than anything else, it's stories. It's a common bond, and that's what I think we can illuminate best and give people a place to talk about and experience and engage with. And if I feel very firmly, if we're telling good stories, then we're doing the right thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I like it the way you framed it. Golf is stories, good stories. Um, we're all storytellers, whether we like to admit it or not, especially on the golf course. Ryan Ballengee from Golf Newsnet. Ryan is actually on his way down to South Carolina this morning, but he's going to stick around and we're going to test his knowledge, not about golf, but about Thanksgiving. And it's going to be fun. So, Ryan, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right. We're going to get out of here. And if you can see, if you're watching this video, you can see this. This is where I'm going next week, right here behind me to Hawaii. And see if I can play a couple rounds of golf back there. Long overdue vacation. Anyway, thank you for listening. We thank all of our sponsors. We thank Brian. And go out there, play some golf, have some fun, but most of all, be kind. Take care, everybody. Welcome to After Hours here on Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. Today we've got Ryan Ballengee with us from Golf News Network. As I said in the tease in the regular show, we're going to test Ryan's knowledge of Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving is coming up very shortly. And so I dug up some trivia questions. I'm a big trivia nut, if you didn't know that. So I think he's ready. You think you're ready, Ryan?
Ready as I'm gonna be.
All right. All right. Well, you're a father, so I'm going to start with something easy for you. What
Oh
movie?
boy. You tell me it's an easy one. That could be bad things for me
Okay.
if I
Well,
boot it. But we're gonna try. We're gonna keep
we're
going.
going to try. We're going to give it a shot here. What movie holds the record for the highest grossing weekend in Thanksgiving history? What movie? And I'll give you a hint. It's relatively new.
Could it be Marvel film?
No. No. Think you're a dad now. Think in dad terms.
Oh boy, a family movie then. I mean, I would have said something like Home Alone or Home Alone 2 or something like that.
Well, that
Show my
used to
age a
be in
little
there.
bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, mine was Casablanca,
So,
but that's really not a family movie.
so what is it? I'm stumped.
It's Frozen, Frozen 2 to be precise.
Frozen 2. Oh man, Frozen 2 stunk too. Um, that's a real yeah. I remember seeing that in the theater. I didn't remember the time of year I saw it, but they really dropped the ball on Frozen 2. And they're gonna
Yeah.
make a Frozen 3.
Yeah, maybe they should just freeze it and keep it in the freezer and leave everybody alone, maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
Just let it stop.
yeah, I can when my kid was little, it was Free Willy. I hated that damn
Oh
fish.
yeah. I
Yeah,
can't believe they made a second one of those either. Like,
I,
what was the sequel gonna be?
I know.
That he
And then
got
they
caught again and got freed again?
yeah, and then they in real life they took him up to Norway and he died. So there you go. They were gonna free Willy for real, and he just ended up as fish food, so to speak. So there you go. What U.S. president was the first to officially pardon a turkey?
I'm gonna say Teddy Roosevelt.
Think a little later in our towards us
In our lifetime.
in our lifetime. Yeah.
George H. Bush. George H.W. Bush.
There you go. That's it. You've got help there, and that's okay.
I got to phone a friend on that one.
You got to phone a friend on that one. Okay. I'm going to test your cooking knowledge here. What temperature should a turkey be cooked at for safe eating? What's the internal temperature when you
The
can
internal,
internal?
170.
Pretty close, 165. And
Okay.
I actually get mine to about 160. Because when you pull it out of the oven or off the smoker or however you're going to do it, it's still going to cook for a few
Still
minutes. So,
cooking.
yeah. So you don't want to get it too dry anywhere. Um, which founding father, you got this one, which founding father famously referred to turkey as a bird of courage?
I hope it's Benjamin Franklin.
It is. It is. Now, this one is pretty good one. How long can turkey we're talking about leftovers here. How long are they safe to keep them in the fridge?
I'm gonna say 2 weeks.
No, actually they say only 4 days, but I've stretched it to a week. Um
That's about as far as I would keep turkey in my refrigerator after Thanksgiving.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing like a good cold turkey sandwich.
Oh, man. Well, I was doing my barbecue show yesterday and we were talking about this stuff and I said my favorite thing is the day after Thanksgiving when nobody's here and I've got some dressing and a little mashed potatoes and a turkey sandwich with and because I love the gravy on those two. So I have a little bowl of stuffing and mashed potatoes with a little gravy on it and a cold turkey sandwich, and I'm good for 2 football games right there. It's I love that stuff. How many passengers were on the original Mayflower?
I'm gonna say, can we have Prices Right rules, the estimation? I'm gonna say like 165.
You're a little high on that. 102.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's not horrible.
No. Have you ever been on that Mayflower replica up in Boston?
No, although I did get on a famine ship in Ireland, not in 24 but in 23, and kind of probably similar size.
Yeah.
And oh man, we are so lucky we never had to do anything like that.
Oh
None
man,
of us would be in this conversation if we had to be on one of those ships for 6 or 7 weeks.
that I was I'm 6 foot tall, and I had to duck going through every doorway there. Okay.
Yeah,
And when you look at that ship, I mean, I've been on fishing boats, charter boats that are bigger than the Mayflower was, and you stick 100+ people on there. I don't know where they sat, where they laid down, where they, went to the restroom. There's not much room. I'll put it that way. What
yeah.
year? Go ahead. Sorry.
Some of the reenactors, they had a reenactment in the boat of the passengers who were on the famine ships, and just some of the conditions they described. Like, our ancestors went through some incredible junk. That's the polite word, to have
Yep.
to get into this country. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, what year was the first Thanksgiving feast held?
Let's say 1648.
Pretty close, 1621. Yeah.
All right,
Uh,
pretty
yeah,
good. That's
that's
pretty good.
legal. That's legal. Um, what was on the menu for the first Thanksgiving? And I'll tell you, it wasn't turkey.
Corn.
Oh yeah, that's one.
Um, Probably tobacco. I don't know, venison.
Yeah, yeah.
I would think potatoes probably weren't a thing yet. Maybe chicken.
No, no chicken, but I'll tell you, venison, goose, duck, fish, porridge. Never
Ooh,
really sure what porridge. I mean, other than it's probably rancid tasting to me.
gross
Um,
oats.
yeah, I'm not a big, oatmeal guy anyway. Porridge and then corn and bread made from corn. That was the main items there. So, uh, pretty close, pretty close. Well, where did that go? Okay. What was the name of the Native American who served as an interpreter between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans?
You
I think
know this too.
I think they made a movie about this person.
Sacagawea?
No, that was Lewis and Clark.
Mm,
I'll give you a hint.
okay.
Some politicians. Now, this isn't the right answer, but this should help you get to the answer. There's a certain senator from Massachusetts who's got a nickname. Uh, and that nickname, the person who was alive when they had that real name, was the girlfriend of this character. How's that for vague?
Let's go with Pocahontas.
Pretty close. It's her boyfriend, Squanto.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that name rings a bell.
Yeah. They I think they did make a movie about that somewhere. Okay. Which state raised the most turkeys in 2023 or any year for that matter?
Ooh. I'm gonna say Florida.
Minnesota.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Minnesota.
What's number two? Do you know?
I think it doesn't say here, but I think it was like either Iowa or Illinois. Well,
Wow. I would think.
you got Genio turkeys up there in Minnesota. Butterball's
Yeah.
got a big outfit up there. So yeah. How many, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, how many places in the U.S. are named Cranberry?
I know there's a Cranberry Township in Pennsylvania. I've been there. Um, I'll say 200.
A little high on that one, buddy. Five.
I've been to one of five.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. You're 20% there. How about that? Um, name a name a side dish from Thanksgiving that is the least popular among people.
Green bean casserole.
Yep, nailed it. Nailed it.
Even though I secretly like green bean casserole, but
No, I get it. I love green bean casserole, but I have people that come to the house, they won't touch it with um, a cane or a crutch. I mean, they just wouldn't do it. Okay, which
I know
founding?
some people.
Go ahead.
I know some people who just can't stand the smell of the onions, the canned onions part. That's
Yeah,
what gets them.
yeah, yeah. I get that. Actually, when I make it, I put onions, those crunchy things, only on half of it on top, and then the other
Oh,
half
that's a
doesn't
good
have,
idea.
like that. Same thing when I make uh like sweet potatoes or yams or something like that. I happen to like the marshmallows. It's the only thing I really like marshmallows in, but
Yeah.
I only do half of the dish with marshmallows so people can, have a choice that way.
Now, do
Um
you do a mash and candied, or do you do one or the other?
uh well, it depends on the year and who's coming, but most of the time I just do a mash, but I've done where we do a candied, or I've cooked them completely whole, skinned them and stuff completely whole, then sliced them down about halfway and put a little drizzle and some pecans on it with a little bourbon in it and put that back in the oven to warm them up. And people like that one too. So um, I'm
That's
per-
good.
I'm pretty versatile about that. So which founding father proclaimed no citizen in the U.S. shall refrain from turkey on Thanksgiving?
Hmm. I'm hoping it's not also Benjamin Franklin again, but
It is not.
I want to say Thomas Jefferson.
Well, you were close. Alexander Hamilton. So
Close in some ways, very different in others.
that is true. That is true. But I'll just say the same circle. They ran in the same circle, so to speak.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. According to the National Turkey Federation, roughly how many turkeys are consumed each Thanksgiving? Rough number here.
Oh my. Say 60 million.
Pretty close, between 45 and 46 million.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That means a lot of people have a Thanksgiving meal and don't have turkey then.
That's true. Well, there's a lot of them will do a ham, or
Yeah.
a lot of people. I know people that I grew up with that were Italian, and they always had like a lasagna or an Italian dish to go. They had some of the same sides, but mostly salads and stuff. But they always had more of an Italian menu there.
Hmm.
It worked out pretty good. Um, where did I lost my place here? No. how many, according to lendingtree.com, how many guests on average does a Thanksgiving host expect to serve? So you're looking for an average here.
I'm going to say 8.
Pretty close, 11. Because
Wow, okay.
it's not an even number because there's always that one derelict uncle or something that, you got to invite. So, that type of thing. And finally, on average, how many questions does the Butterball Turkey Talk Line field from callers during the holiday season, starting just before Thanksgiving and going through Christmas?
Wonder how much that's gone down in the era of the internet. But I would say 500,000.
Now, I think you answered your own question there. 100,000. And
Aha.
that stat was from 2023. So I think probably prior to the internet, and we had 800 numbers there in the 80s and 90s. I think you're probably closer, 500,000 there.
Yeah, now you can go watch a great YouTube video on how to cook a turkey however you want to cook it.
Yep. I think there's a YouTube video on pretty much everything out there in the world. Some I prefer not to watch, actually, but there's a lot of YouTube out there. Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Network on his way south with his good friend. Say your name again, buddy.
Ethan.
Ethan. I was joking, actually. Anyway, you guys have a safe trip. Have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks for playing the after hours trivia game for Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for giving me something to study for Quiz Bowl next year for the kids. So
but yeah, you're gonna need that, and you better get that Frozen 2, 3, 7, however many they have out by that time. You better get that one nailed, or your kids are gonna look at you like you're got 3 heads. So
they already do that, so we're good.
All right. All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening to After Hours here on Grilling at the Green. Don't forget Golf Newsnet Television, which we're a proud part of, just pretty much launching as we speak and continuing to grow, and Golf Newsnet Radio. And we thank Ryan and Ethan for being with us today. So enjoy Thanksgiving. I will be thinking about you on the big cigar tube flying to the islands.